Obviously, when you sat down and structured a screenplay, how did you decide on the time frame and what you want to share? Because biopics could get very long.
Yeah. Well, I think myself and the producers, we never really wanted it to feel like a biopic. I think we wanted it to feel like a character drama, for it to be able to live in sort of the intimate moments of their lives. And if we spread it out over this huge, long time frame, then it becomes like vignette or episodic. And so then it was like we knew that was the principle, the way we wanted to tackle the story. And then I just started to try and figure out, what was the most dramatic arc in that time, in a condensed time that we could find. And I read, the story about Venus's Vicario match, and I really fell in love with that as like the end point of where I thought this story could end for her as a character. And I think that I wanted to try and find the moment in their life where like everything we knew they would achieve was in the crucible at that moment, that it was either going to succeed or it was going to fail, and these years were like the most crucial. So
as a writer, when you're writing real life people, do you feel a pressure because you want to show the flaws, and that's drama, but at the same time they're real people? Do you ever feel pressure, like how much you could show or how to balance that?
Yeah, I definitely felt pressure, but I also knew that I wanted it to be a really multi-dimensional portrait, of the whole family, but particularly of Richard, and to not shy away from him being a complicated character. And that felt like the real thing that got me very excited beyond the scope of the story and everything that they achieved, was that Richard was a really complicated guy. And that if we could capture that, I thought it would make the story, have the feeling of like an independent drama, but on the sort of background of a much bigger movie. And that it was gonna, if we took away some of the like gray areas of his character, that it was gonna ultimately like negate some of the inspirational aspect of what the family actually achieved, because if that felt inauthentic, then maybe the rest of the movie would feel inauthentic, and we never wanted that to happen.
Biopics can get really long sometimes. What was your choice to keep it in a kind of a shorter time period, but a more tense time for their lives?
Well, Zach Balin, who wrote the script, picked the perfect window for us to focus on. And that was the script that I read, and we really tried to, I thought it was a perfect insight into the Williams family, into their lives, and this little, period of time that nobody really knew much about, that we could discover things about the Williams family that we didn't know. So Zach chose it. I thought it was great, and we ran with it.
One more quick question. Did you feel any pressure, because you don't want to show too much of the people's lives, flaws in their lives, or did you say, we just got to tell the narrative story?
No, I didn't think about that at all. We tried to tell it as authentically as possible. We had the Williams family, who were producers on the film, who were there with us every day, who were able to tell us the real stories, how it really went down. So to have them, it was such an asset for us making the movie.
What was the biggest challenge for you trying to play a real person and want to honor them, but at the same time, you got to find your own way to play the character?
Honestly, the first thing that I connected with Venus is her heart. So that was instantly what drew me to her. But getting to talk to her, meet her family, and get to know how they were growing up, that helped me so much. But at the same time, I could be myself, because there were so many similarities between us. So it wasn't too hard.
So meeting them really did kind of free you up, not to worry about anything.
Definitely, for sure. And Mr. Will, he became Richard, I became Venus, then he became Serena. So it just felt real after a while.
My question is, when you first read the script, was there a particular scene that really said, oh, I really want to play this, or maybe scared you a little?
Well, the scene where Miss Orsine is doing Venus and Serena's hair, and that iconic look that they have that everybody knows them for, that was my favorite scene.
So my question is, when you first read the screenplay, was there a particular scene that said, I really want to play this, or maybe scared you a little?
I know. Let me see, what was the first? So usually the way I judge a screenplay, I read it, and if I can't get through the first 20 pages without standing up and going to a mirror and acting the scenes out, I know I want to make that one. And it literally took me 3 days to get through the first half of the screenplay, because I couldn't stop standing up and acting the scenes out and watching video and listening to his voice. From literally the first moment, I was wildly excited to get to know Richard Williams. There's the newsreel character that we know of Richard Williams, but I found out very quickly there was a whole other dude that was, hidden beneath the headlines.
How did you want to, when you were structuring the script, how did you want to structure Lita's flashback story to serve her current story?
Well, the flashbacks in my film are not exposition. Sometimes flashbacks serve to be like, and now let us explain to you what you've just seen. And I don't mean for them at all to function like that. I mean for them to function like the way a mind works, like where I could just been walking to get a coffee and like for what was actually 20 seconds, I was in some other place for, I was in 1999 for a second, and like coming here as a kid to Santa Barbara or whatever. I do think our minds work in many different time periods at once. And so if we're following a narrative of this woman as a mother and her experience, it's going to exist in more than one time period.
So for you loved the book, obviously. What was the funnest challenge of translating the book into your visual, sense?
Oh, I would say that the biggest challenge was to make sure that people who knew nothing about this universe will feel welcome, because I'm a hardcore fan, and it would have been easy to just go in that direction and please. But I wanted to make sure that it's a movie that could be accessible to, especially to a younger audience that knew nothing about this universe, and give them the appetite to know more about it and go read the book.
So I actually wanted to ask you about the most climactic scene in the movie after, Lucy does the speech, but really the betrayal is revealed. How do you and Nicole approach that scene because it was so dramatic and, climactic?
Well, that's one of the scenes where you see the genius of Aaron Sorkin. How he wrapped the movie. Once you thought or you felt that the movie was coming to an end, then he has a surprise. The most groundbreaking surprise, emotionally speaking. And it makes so much sense in the story that it hurts. When I read the script, I found myself celebrating mostly every page of it, but especially that scene, because I thought it was brilliant. How do we play it? We learn the lines. It's so well written that you learn the lines and you try to be focused on what the scene is about and nothing else, nothing more. And it was the third day of shooting, so we played the last scene on our third day of knowing each other. So that was challenging.
Well, I guess we can't really talk about Bruno. We're not allowed.
But we can sing about it.
Okay. No, yeah. So what I loved about the character, you're setting up his relation, you're setting up the character, but you're also setting up the misconceptions about him. How did you approach creating the song to kind of set up such an important moment in the movie?
It's such a great question. Thank you for that. The fact is, the first time you hear the song, you're like, oh, what a spooky ghost story, Montuno, all those terrible predictions. The second time you go, wait a minute. Those are the lamest prophecies I've ever heard. Goldfish die. People grow guts. People lose their hair. He's not predicting anything, actually. His sister controls the weather. Of course she's going to be stressed out on her wedding day. So it is one of those things where you tell the story as spookily as possible, but when you actually look down, it's got to have that sixth sense thing of like when you look back at the details, you realize, oh, there was a possibility that which is a larger theme of the movie, the way in which these prophecies are received is actually more spooky than the way in which they've been, than what their actual content. Yeah.
You've adapted so many great Shakespearean adaptations. In some ways, you're adapting your own personal life in this story. What was the process for you trying to pull in your own personal experience to tell a narrative story?
It was to try and make sure that a personal story was available to other people. So when I thought about how I rehearsed with the actors, I didn't encourage them necessarily to ask me documentary questions about my own family, but to bring accounts of their own family and their own experience into it, to begin the process of making something that was not solely personal and individual, but could go out to a more universal audience. That was the idea behind it. It's just making sure that it wasn't navel gazing. It was trying to look out into the world for the ways in which this story of one family's challenges with certain kind of life decisions could speak to other people's.
And final question, how's it being back in movie theaters?
Great. I mean, when you see a full house watching a film, which I love to do. I mean, I'm an inveterate moviegoer. I go at least once a week. It's great. I love the communal experience. I love eating ice cream at the cinema, and I generally have a great time. So I watch every kind of movie, and when we've seen, as we have, so many people come and commit to seeing this movie, it's been a real thrill.
The main family. How did you work with them to collaborate to get the family dynamic going? Did you do a lot of rehearsals? What was your process getting the family together?
Well, we did rehearse. I always think there's some value in trying to find a way to just make people trust each other. So early on, you want to find a bit of shared experience that does that. So we shared stories about background, and school experiences. And for instance, Katrina Balfe, she grew up, her father was in the Southern Irish Police. They were stationed at a border town where violence was very regular because it was, it was a very sort of volatile atmosphere. So she knew, also she was uprooted from a big community that she was very familiar with into this much more isolated place where her father wasn't necessarily the most popular individual for some of the population. So she shared some of those stories of her feelings of being unsettled. Jamie Dornan shared stories about bringing girlfriends home, hearing noises outside that they thought were cars misfiring, and he had to explain were bombs going off, and then proving it by switching the television on, and 10 minutes later that same noise was being reported. And everybody shared things like that also allowed you to understand a bit of the sort of gallows humor that grew up from having to get used to violent events.
What was the process of you creating the family bond between your other castmates? Because you obviously had to be close to that family. How did you approach that?
Well, Ken is incredibly clever, and what he did, first of all, was get us in a room, and we shared a lot of our stories about our childhood and our families, and he posed many different scenarios, and from that sharing, we knew each other very intimately after about 3 hours. But then another thing was he got us to play games. We were playing rounders, we were playing basketball, with the kids and everything, and it's a real leveler. And, I think very quickly we all just felt like we were bonded.
What was the key process for you working with the other actors to create that family bond? Because you were so close and intimate. How did you kind of work with the other cast members to create that family bond?
Well, it was extraordinary that Ken Branagh, who's so experienced in all different genres, media, brilliant. He set us a very simple exercise because we didn't have much time. We had about 2 days to get to know each other and rehearse and just talk through the script. And basically he sat down the 4 adults, Judi Dench, myself, Jamie and Katrina, and we all told each other the stories of our childhoods. He said, we don't have time, so we're not going to pretend like improvisation, how we get to know each other. You start, Katrina. Tell us what it was like as a child. Just 15 minutes. So within an hour, we all knew about each other's childhood. And sometimes when you get to meet somebody, it takes you a while to go all the way back there. So Ken had opened us all to each other because we knew things about them that were in a way very private, very open about their siblings, about their parents, about their schooling. And in that way, he brought to us an immediate opening and a warmth between us, because we told things maybe were better kept quiet about. And in that way, though, when we came to work very quickly, we all just felt very safe and very trusting of each other to be able to free up and be open.
Mr. Cumberbatch, what was the key finding Phil's humanity in the script?
It's in the book, and it's in his backstory, which is rife in the book, and it's in Jane's sensitivity to try and carry through this complex character and make us understand what the motivation is behind his toxic masculinity. And I think that was the key. I think that was more the shoe-in for her as me as that character than the stuff we had to portray him as in the first sort of 2 quarters of the film. But yeah. I'm not interested in playing people unless I can understand them.
How do you decide, like, let's take the end sequence, the most climactic moment, emotional moment. How do you decide when to use sound and not use sound?
Well, there's the obvious action sequences that need full-on action sound effects, music, etc. And they need to be very entertaining. They need to be very adrenaline-driven. But then during this film, knowing that it was Daniel's last outing as Bond, and also the fact that he discovers he has a family and his love interest with Madeleine, there were many moments throughout the film where we had to try and create an arc that allowed that emotion to come through and allowed us to scale down on what we were hearing outside, and to also just try to focus the audience in on a quieter scene so it wasn't assaultive all the way through the whole mix. And of course that last sequence right up to the very, very end was a tremendously long ramp into what would finally happen to Bond and what he's known all along for, ahead of the audience, hopefully.
Do you kind of enjoy sometimes doing the silent or the more quieter places where you can just use it sporadically, the sound when you need it?
Most definitely. I mean, sometimes those are the harder sequences, to be honest, because we have then the great ability to focus on what we want the audience, or the filmmakers want the audience to really hone in on. Whereas the action sequences, they're normally fairly obvious. You're going to have gunshots, you're going to have racing cars, you're going to have rolling cars, you're going to have rocks, you're going to have shouting and driving music. But during the quieter sequences, they can be more challenging.
Parallel Mothers is such a beautiful film. What was your initial reaction when you read the screenplay?
Thank you. So when I read the script, I thought it was a perfect script. I was blown away by it. I was in love with the character. I knew it was a really, really difficult, challenging character, but I was really happy about that. I mean, he's never gonna call you and give you something simple or easy. Because he's not that person, and he does every single time such a deep, beautiful study of human complexity, but not only with characters for women, also wonderful characters for men. And I feel very lucky that I've been able to play for now 7 of those characters. I hope many more.
Me too. We had one scene struck my students a lot. Was Gary with the truck, and you're sitting on the curb at the end looking out and realizing what's going on. A lot of emotions are going through that scene. Yes. How did you kind of approach that scene?
Well, that scene is actually super poignant. I'm glad that you actually pointed that scene out, because you see the scene right before that is Gary. He's thinks that he's gone on this roller coaster, oh, she's got it. She's driving backwards, but she's cool, calm, and collected. And then her sitting on that curb is her realizing oh, we're on 2 different planets. I almost killed everyone. It is a miracle that we are alive right now. And you think it was just a fun ride, that you've never had any sort of doubt. And that's the thing about being that young, is you think you're going to live forever. You do the craziest things you could ever think of. And then when you're my age, or Alana Kane's age, she's a little younger than me in the movie, but you realize oh no, you're not invincible. And that's really her first inkling of, oh, I need to get my life together. And then she just so happens to be in front of a poster of Joel Wax, which is where she gets her life together. But no, that is a very poignant scene.
An obvious question, what made you want to tell this story?
I think, it's a remake of a French film called La Famille Bélier, and when I first saw the film, I was very moved by the story at the center, but I also saw an opportunity to depict deaf culture and a deaf family on screen in an authentic way that wasn't really done with the original. So I think I just got excited about that potential, because when I looked sort of for representation that was out there, it was very hard to find.
So the family dynamic was wonderful. They felt like a completely real family, which I really haven't seen on screen in a very long time. Yeah. How did you work with them together to create that kind of family bond?
Well, I think it started with the writing, just being super specific about these characters and who they were, and basing, the out-of-line sexual openness on my own parents and the rapport with my own sister, and there's sort of the sister-brother relationship. So a lot of it is just making it personal and specific, and then you find your actors and you really do a lot of work to create these characters and bonds and all the subtext going on in this family, and you pull it out.
How did you approach the comedy? Let's take this scene, the sex scene, with Roby. How did you approach writing that originally in the script, but translating to the screen, working on set with the actors to make it actually happen?
The subtitles are what I wrote when you read the subtitles on the screen, and then I think we would just play with it on set. I mean, Troy is a brilliant signer. He's super funny and very creative with his signing, and so we would sort of chat about, what I meant by the line, and he would kind of think on it, and we would go back and forth, and then he would do something different every take. I mean, the sex talk that he did with the kids, I remember we shot one side, and then we were turning around, and I said, Amelia and Ferdia, like this, we've done this a lot, but you got to play it like it's the first time you've seen it. And they're like, oh, we're fine. He's doing something different every time anyway. So it was just, he's super funny. He's super funny, and he knows how to riff on a joke. And so, we're a good match humor-wise.
Our main question is, how much did you enjoy playing the comedic scenes, like the scene where Ruby brings a boy home and you want to have the sex talk?
Oh, I enjoyed it very much. I told myself I really had to figure out how to tell that story to make it universal so that everyone could understand it. And it wouldn't even matter if a hearing audience didn't know sign language, they could figure it out, right? And so that was what was a beautiful part of our story, because I had to gesticulate to really reach out to hearing people and to everyone. But it's an important message, safe sex. And so there was a purpose to it.
One of the scenes my students were really struck with was your scene where you're singing to your father in the truck. How did you approach that emotionally?
Troy and I are very close, and we always have been. The minute I met him, we kind of had this kind of father-daughter relationship. He was away from his daughter, who was a Coda, and she's my age. I was away from my father, and so we kind of just fell into this bond, and that scene we knew was very special, and we just had this moment while we were doing that scene. He was feeling the vibrations, and Troy pulled away from me, and he said, I'd give anything to hear you sing right now. And he folded me into one of his hugs, and we sat there, and Sean called action, and we didn't do it. She cross-covered, so we didn't do it take after take after take. And I guess something special happened. And I think with independent movie making, because you're kind of rushed for time, it kind of brings out a rawness that's exciting to see on screen, and I think that's what happened in that scene.
Thank you so much.